Welcome to It's Your Date with Destiny with Apostle Vivian and Pastor Jemma Duncan of Divine Destiny Worship Center in Diego Martin. For the next 30 minutes, join us as we take you on a journey of maximizing your potential and realizing your goals through Jesus Christ.
Why is it when you need a miracle, it doesn't happen, but when you least expect it, it happens?
You are married, you have challenges in your relationship, but your spouse is unwilling to accede to any counseling. Is divorce an option?
How does a parent handle a promiscuous child?
What are considered the do's and don'ts of a born-again couple who is not yet married?
There are always more questions than answers. So here is Apostle Jemma.
Grace and peace to you. Welcome to Ask Pastor Jemma. In the event that you're a first-time viewer, my name is Jemma Duncan. I'm married to Apostle Vivian Duncan, and together we pastor Divine Destiny Worship Center. Our headquarters is in Diego Martin, opposite Sardonynx Drive on the Diego Martin Main Road in Trinidad. We have branches in Sangre Grande, in Chaguanas, in Rio Claro, in Faizabad. There's a branch in Tobago and one in Antigua. Our churches are fully in person, except Rio Claro. You can enter any one of the branches at 9 a.m. every Sunday. But our weekly services, Thursdays and Fridays at 7 p.m., we're still online. Our administrative office is opened Monday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and the business center Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This afternoon, I'm very privileged because I'm going to present to you the Marriage Confessional, and I know it's going to revolutionize your life.
Workplace trauma is very much a real thing.
Absolutely.
You know, we spend so much of our time on the workplace
At
or
work.
working.
Yep.
You know, even if you just do a typical 9 to 5, you're talking about at least a third of your day is spent working. That's a significant portion. So take out work, take out sleep, and you know, you're left with just a few hours left.
Yeah.
So which means that when stress on the workplace happens, or when incidents that affect you negatively happen, you know, it carries over into the other aspects of life.
Absolutely.
And, you know, workplace stress and workplace trauma can have impact on your relationships, especially your marriage relationship.
Of course.
You know, your marital relationships. And, you know, we weren't even aware that April, we just found this out, that April is Stress Awareness Month.
Yeah.
It's a month that was designated back in 1992, so over 30 years ago, about 30 years ago.
Wow.
And it was designated to for learning to cope with stress and giving people healthy ways to deal with stressful situations.
And recognizing that that's a real thing.
Recognizing that it's a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, the first step in fixing any problem is recognizing that there is a problem.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this is what these episodes are about. These episodes are about sharing from our experiences, but giving you a frame of reference, giving you a point of view so that you too can look at your life, look at your situations, look at your relationship, and be aware of things that are happening. Because only when, you know, you recognize that those things exist, you could actually fix it. And for many of you out there, I know the feeling. You're probably saying, oh wow, I've been experiencing this for all this time, but finally I have words for it, or I've heard someone articulate it. And that's what we are all about here at the Marriage Confessional. But, you know, as I said, workplace trauma is a real thing. And for me, you know, my experience, you know, took place back in, all the way back in 2008, actually, 2008, where right when the mortgage crisis was happening, just when it's about to get at its, you know, started getting to its worst, you know, I was doing my job, you know, couple of years out of school, very enthusiastic, working very hard. Looking back at it in retrospect, I was a bit naive. But, you know, one morning I got a call, and I got called to the management's office, and I walked into the office. There's my boss, there's my boss's boss, and they told me that I was being let go. And, you know, I still remember that day, that morning happening in slow motion. And, you know, the hardest part of that was, all right, I got let go, no problem, you know, but I was summoned to the HR department. When I got to the HR department, it felt real because there were hundreds of people. At that time, this was the first rounds of mass layoffs. So there was at least 100 people in the lobby area of the HR department, some crying, some on the phone, some despondent, some anxious. And we all, it just felt so, you know, it felt so off to have us all corralled like animals going to a slaughterhouse, you know, waiting to get our paperwork, our packet to see what we're going to get, see what kind of, you know, to be wondering about our future.
Yeah.
And I could still remember that image, that vivid image of, you know, people crying. And I mean, I was just there in slow motion, very jaded, didn't know what to do, but going through the motions.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I got the packet. I called Leah at the time. We were fiancé at the time. Yes, we were engaged at the time. And, you know, I just said, hey, you know, hey, guess what? I got laid off, you know. I was still cool, everything was fine. And then, you know, the next couple of days started a big roller coaster.
Yeah, all the emotions
you remember
started
those
to
days?
sink
It was
in.
just, I was cool one day, and then the next day I started getting angry, and I was very upset, and I was bitter. And then, you know, I went through the phase where I just had so much regret. I should have done this. Why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I say this? Or why didn't I take this, you know, different direction? And there was one part of it where I really sunk to my lowest low. It's when I started to have self-doubt. I started to have self-doubt. I started to not believe that I was good enough. I started to say things that were a bit off for somebody like me. And I don't know if you remember those days when, you know, you would have to pull me up by the bootstraps. Yes, and be like, listen, babe, you are good enough. Don't, you know.
are worthy, you are worth it, you are more than enough, you are all that God says you are and more, right? This is just one experience, one thing in your story. And you're not going to allow that thing to define you, but you're going to use it as an experience, learn from it, and move forward.
Yes, and you know, so that was definitely one thing. You know, it really took me out of character by starting to not believe that I was good enough. And if I didn't have your support, you know, I could only imagine what would have happened. You know, how low the low would have been, because my lows were very, very low. And you know, one of the fallouts of this whole experience is, you know, I spent a lot of time, you know, in my early days at that job, trying to play the corporate game the right way. You know,
the way they taught you.
Yes, we were taught. Yes,
in college, getting ready for that job, that dream job. In your case, on Wall Street, that is what you were taught.
Yes,
you executed the plan that you were told.
Executed the plan. Right. You come in early. You stay late, you put in the extra effort, you schmooze, so you do all the networking events, you try, you know, I learned to play golf, and I went on golf outings with you know, with managers and those, you know, and the like.
You went on a ski trip.
I learned to ski, they took me on a ski trip.
I remember that.
I did all kind of things that an island boy never experienced.
Yes.
All to play the game. And it was the same quorum of people who, quote unquote, conspired, you know, against me to put that argument forth for me to be laid off. And I felt betrayed. You know, college didn't prepare me for dealing with jealousy on the job. And sabotage.
Wow.
I didn't expect people.
Those are real things on the job.
I didn't expect people to sabotage.
Through.
I didn't expect people to, you know, they work with you.
They smile at you today.
Listen.
In your face.
In your face.
Right.
Or they work with you closely and you do all of the groundwork. And you say, hey, can we review this together?
Yeah.
In the meeting the next day, they are taking all of the plaudits.
Yeah.
I didn't know these things existed. And I think, of course I was a bit naive, but those were some of the lessons that I had to learn. And I say that to say, I did all of the things right. I did the networking, I got to know people, I visit people's homes, we went on these corporate outings, etc.
Yeah.
And it caused me to withdraw. And even to this
kind of become isolated.
Yes, keep to myself. And even to this day, 14 years later, I find it hard. I struggle to make work relationships beyond the surface. I'm good. You could ask anyone. I'm good at making friends. I'm good at striking up conversations. I'm good at maintaining really good work relationships. But translate those outside of the office, not dear Emmanuel Duncan. It's it's difficult for me to just bridge that
and
divide.
because of that experience, and it's interesting because to this day, when that date rolls around, to the time of when you were called to be laid off, you remember that thing. And you remember it.
People who suffer trauma tell you these things, like when the date comes, or when the season comes, or when the holiday comes, when the actual events, the calendar part of the year, events roll around, your body feels it. And I don't know if you remember, just last month, I was heading to the office and I called you. I was like, hey, guess what? And you're like, what? I was like, it's, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning. I was like, it's 10 o'clock. 14 years ago, I got that call to go into the office, and it changed our lives. Yes.
But at least this time around, and from this place that you're speaking from, you remember it. Yes, you recall it, but it's a far cry from that place you were 14 years ago.
Yes.
That low place, that hurt place, that very painful place that you were in for a while, and you had to navigate, find your way out of that situation.
And the context to that whole thing is, before the whole, layoff started happening, I got this impression, and now we know it's Holy Spirit and it was God speaking. I said, listen, this is not going to end well. Start interviewing, start finding opportunities outside of this place. And it so happened that the day that the layoffs happened, I had already secured my next job, which is the place that I had already accepted a job offer, which ultimately helped, with the sting of it. The emotional part, it didn't really have the emotional part. It took me about 2 years to get over the whole emotions, literally 2 years to get over the whole emotions. But physically, professionally, from my career point of view, it was just a stepping stone to the next place. But what I realized is that by having God on my side, looking back at the situation, all of that was just part of the plan that God had for me, part of my story. Going through it, I couldn't tell you that it was that. Going through it was difficult. And, you have to understand the magnitude. This was my ambition. From high school, from
a little
all
boy
the way
growing
to college.
up in Trinidad, this is what you wanted
This is what I wanted to do.
Be a programmer.
Exactly, be a programmer, and programming on Wall Street, that was the thing to do. And, it just, the entire bubble, my naivety just came crashing down. And it made me better. And I'm just so thankful to God that I had you. And this happened before we actually went to the altar. But we were engaged, we were committed to be married. So we had to deal with this as a unit. Yes, we had to deal with this as a unit. And, 2008 was the year that we got married. So we were planning to get married. I had a wedding coming up. Like the whole pressure of the situation just weighed so heavily on my shoulders. So I really thank God for the support that you gave. I thank God for keeping my head up, even to this day, when I have a challenging situation on the job, or I'm working on a project, or I'm working on some sort of proposal, and you see me down in the doldrums, you're like, babe, no, this is it, this is your season, this is your time.
And sometimes I might even I might hear you working, and And maybe it's just a text message.
Right.
To say, listen, you got this, you can do this, don't let them, get to you, or, that encouragement. And that's so important for your partner to know and to feel that encouragement both ways, not just, husband to wife, but wife to husband too. That's very important to have that two-way street.
Yes.
Open and flowing.
Yes, I remember you did something really cute. This is when during the lockdown I was working from home, and I was preparing for something, and I had the papers stapled on my desk, ready for, when I was going to do whatever presentation I was going to do. And I went to get ready or whatever. And when I came back, I saw on pencil, "You got this," on that piece of paper, and I was like,
I forgot about
yeah. And it one little phrase, but it meant so much.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's the type of support that we're talking about. That's the type of, in a marriage relationship, in a marital relationship, when you see your spouse going through something, especially on the career front, some of us take this, career ambitions really, really, really seriously. And, it could be devastating when you don't get the desired result. And I think having that support system, having that person to encourage you really, really is important.
It makes a big difference.
Makes a big difference.
It makes a difference because you're going to have those moments, you're going to have those times, those trying circumstances. But of course, when you have the encouragement, the support from your spouse, and of course, you know that God is on your side.
Yes.
Regardless, He is on your side. He's with you. Those things, those elements, really help to take you through, those situations.
Yes. And maybe you're looking at us right now, and you're feeling like if you're not good enough. Maybe there's some situation that happened on the job, or in your career, or whatever sphere of life, and it has you feeling like if you're not good enough. It has you feeling like if, hey, maybe I wasn't cut out to do this, or it has you feeling like your lifelong ambition was worth nothing, wasn't worth pursuing, and you're wondering what your next steps are. You're wondering, is this my reality, that I'm going to be a failure? And maybe everything was going swimmingly well, and then COVID happened. And all of your
so
progress.
Many people lost jobs. So many people had to transition.
Yes.
So many different. COVID in itself, extremely traumatic for everyone.
Yes.
But then all of the fallout from COVID impacting different areas of life, including, of course, work.
Yes.
And career.
Yes. And you may be listening. Maybe you're the one. Yes, you have a job, but it's not where you used to be. Back before COVID happened, and you're in a transient, place, a transitional place.
Yes.
I want to encourage you, keep holding on, keep believing. One of the things that we could say for sure is that when I looked back, I knew that God was always with me.
Absolutely.
He was always with us.
Yes.
And what we think might be a devastating blow in terms of your career and blah blah blah, it's just God putting a speed bump to make you to hang a left and hang a right and really navigate you through the waters towards your destiny.
Yes.
And what it turned out, as we were explaining, in 2008, the early part of 2008, when this incident happened, this was just before the massive fallout.
Just at the beginning.
I was in the first wave of layoffs, which meant that, because I started looking for jobs before, there were opportunities, there were jobs.
Available.
There was not a glut in the market of people searching for jobs as yet.
Yeah.
So when I look at it, I count myself as one of the fortunate ones.
Blessed
that I got cut early enough to land on my feet.
Yeah, because had it not been that way.
1 month, 2 months, 3 months later.
It could have been many months before you even get a job.
Yes.
And then what kind of job? Maybe you had to take a pay cut because you need to just get something because you needed something immediately before you could get something better.
Yes. Or an unwilling career change just so that I could be employed. Those things are real challenges that people had to endure. And I count myself fortunate. So looking back at it now, I could smile. I could say, Lord, thank you. I could say, Lord, you know what? Even though this could have ended horribly, I see your hand in the whole situation. And that's where we want people to be
Yes.
when it comes to trauma. You know when you get to the point when you could look back at your situation and say, Lord, thank you.
Yes.
Lord, thank you. You know, when you get to the point where, you move from, oh my gosh, look at what they did me, and you think about, maybe I could do this differently, or maybe I could improve in this way, and you look for opportunities to improve in the midst of that situation. That's when you know you've overcome, your situation.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I read this quote recently that I actually shared with you, and I think it's so appropriate. And it said there's a difference between speaking from a scar and speaking from an open wound.
Yes.
You go through traumatic experiences in life. You're hurt. You go through pain. But you process it. You deal with it. If you need therapy, as we talked about so many times,
yes,
you seek professional help. You get help from your pastors. You get help from the people that love you, your family unit, your support system, your spouse. You talk. And you work through it with God, with the grace of God. And over time, heal. And when that situation is no longer raw, as you talked about in one of the earlier episodes about the scar.
Yes.
And touching that thing and having it heal, and then being able to speak about it.
Yes.
And then when you speak about it now, you're speaking from a place where you could empower others.
That's
you could
right.
encourage somebody
right.
that might have gone through a similar circumstance or a similar situation, or might be going through something right now that need a word of encouragement. And there's so many people, so many of you out there that have gone through things, and you have such powerful testimonies to share. And we encourage you to share them. We encourage you, whether it's a post on social media, or sharing at your church, or writing it, putting a book together, whatever you have, share it, because you never know who you're going to touch with that testimony, that experience. Don't waste that experience, because you went through it for a purpose.
That's right.
And the purpose is to be able to help somebody else.
Yes, and in my case, I wrote a book.
Yes.
How to Make It from the Classroom to the Cubicle. It's available on duncansinspire.com. You go to our store when you get to the duncansinspire.com website, and it will take you to amazon.com, where it's
or you can just plug in Amazon.
Yes, or amazon.com
and check out
and look for How to Make It from the Classroom to the Cubicle.
But it's interesting how you were able to write that book.
Yes.
Though.
Yes. So in the months following me getting laid off, I started jotting down, every time I remembered a story or an incident, I started jotting down what I think I did wrong, or what that experience meant, or what I could do differently, or what I'll tell my younger self not to do. Because this book is really about, telling you the things that they don't teach you in college, or, when you go into the workplace. And when I realized after a couple of months, I started flipping through, the pages that I wrote, and I was like, wait a minute. This is.
So you called your dad.
This is a book of advice. This is some advice. So I called my dad. I was like, Daddy, I think I have a manuscript. And anybody who knows Apostle Vivian, he's going to say, go for it, son. Yeah. And I took those scrap notes, and I turned it into a full-length book.
Yeah.
And this book has been blessing people since 2012.
Yeah, I know. But it's
2012.
Interesting because you talk about just, going through about 2 years when you kind of just struggled with this experience.
Yes.
and trying to get through it. And you started to write and jot things down. And even that is so therapeutic.
Yes.
That was almost like a medicine for you.
Yes.
Almost like a therapy to help you get through that phase, that situation that you experienced.
Yes.
And help you process it, to help you get those feelings out. And it doesn't have to be a conventional way.
Yes.
Right? There's
That's
no
right.
one size fits all when you're dealing with your emotions and your feelings and
Just find a way.
things that you've gone through in your life, in your situation, in your circumstance. And in Dion's case, it was just writing, and maybe that is what some person might want to do.
That's right.
Pick up whether it's a diary or something. Just start writing, journaling how you feel and getting those feelings out on paper. Because some people, they aren't, speaking might be challenging.
Right.
But perhaps you can write and then read it.
And people look down on journaling. Let me tell you something. The moment you start writing your feelings, you get so much words and so much language
so much
to write
release.
them. Yes, so much release, and that's also a way that you could do. And as I said, as Leah mentioned, I got my healing writing this book.
Wow.
For the years when I moved on, my motivations were all messed up. I was like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to make myself so unfireable that I'm just going to show them that who I am, and I'm going to show them how good I am, etc., etc. Excelling, but for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, when you do the right thing with the wrong intent, when you hit an obstacle, you're going to feel you're going to come crashing down.
Yeah.
So this what we are talking about here is finding a way to get your healing. When we talk about trauma, when we talk about stress, when we talk about interpersonal relationships being affected by trauma or some incident or some situation or some circumstance, we are just using our experiences to give you tools, give you a framework with which you could have these discussions with your spouse or with your partner if you're getting ready to head to the altar. Yes. And these things are important because, workplace stress is part of everyday life.
Everyday life,
it's
everyday
part of
living.
everyday life and everyday living.
Yep, and there's so many different elements of it. You went through being laid off, but there's a trauma that happens with manager and employee.
Yes.
Colleagues.
Yes.
Clients.
Yes,
all
it happens in all different directions and all different dynamics.
And things, different scenarios can play out.
Yes.
And you mentioned things like jealousy and sabotage and all those elements and situations that could arise too. So there are many different aspects there.
Yes, and there are aspects, other things as well, like gender bias and race bias. Those are topics that we could talk about for days and years and years and years to come.
Absolutely.
But it's it's very important. It takes all forms. It could come in all manner of ways. But are you aware that it's happening? Once you have that awareness, you could fix it.
forget what Jesus said. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except by me. God bless you real good.